Hey everybody, One of Wisdom here. Again, this is a little bit late because I was out of town. My apologies on that, but not much I can do. Pool table doesn't really travel well, so nonetheless, getting on this as soon as I can. Basically, what we have up first is our round 3 results. Round 3, of course, we were down to basically our Elite 8, if you will. Of course, this is the base 32 Skylanders, and again, the way this works, it's all based on fan vote. So basically, you go to the blog, vote in the poll, based on the matchup, which Skylander you think would win, and that's all there is to it. That's how everything's decided. Pretty simple. I think it's working out well. Glad people are kind of into it. But that said, we will go ahead and get started. Our first bracket, basically the number 1 seed bracket, of course, Warnado, he got knocked out. But what that came down to was what I think is probably the best matchup we've had thus far. Two of my favorite characters. It was number 16 Slam Bam taking on number 12 Terrafin. Like I said before, I think both of these guys, pretty much classic close quarter brawlers, if you will. But the way that panned out, just FYI, all of these had over 225 votes, we'll just say. And this one actually had the most votes. It had 4 or 5 more than the others. Perhaps just because there are a couple of people really pulling for a certain character or something. But it came down to Terrafin having 132 votes, which was exactly 32 better than Slam Bam, who had a dead even 100. Basically, what that means, we now have our number 1 seed bracket come down. It will be Terrafin advancing past Slam Bam. So Slam Bam will, sadly take a step back, and Terrafin will advance on. Our second seeded bracket, which again, the way this works out, ideally, Warnado was the number 1, so the number 4 seed, of course, being his Ignitor. This bracket actually played out just like it should according to popular vote, 4 versus 5. Assuming that would happen with, Warnado, he would have the easiest time numerically getting to the championship and winning. As it came down to it, as you can see, 12 versus 16 in that slot, but that's why you have the 4 seed here. Then Camo, being number 2, worked out numerically, and then had Whamshell been able to advance, you could have had 2 versus 3. So I think that sort of should finally explain the bracket for those still wondering about it. But basically, it was set up to where the final 4, you would have 1 versus 4 and 2 versus 3, in a perfect outcome. And then that way, of course, your number 1 would have the easiest time getting in. But that said, we will go ahead and take a look at our second seed bracket. We had basically a showdown here between the dragons. Of course, number 7, Cynder from the Undead element. She's been doing very well. Camo, who is our number 2 seed, apparently has a very, very, very big following. It wasn't just based on, the time of the original poll. But the way this one panned out, it was actually, let's see, very large margin. It was 144 votes for Camo to 84 for Cynder. So basically, it was a 60 vote margin. Kind of surprised by that. I thought Camo would win, but didn't know it would be that big of a margin. Of course, this one had 228 votes, the second most, of course, only to Slam Bam and Terrafin. So now we have Cynder stepping back here by Ghost Roaster, and Camo will advance. Of course, he is the number 2 seed, is representing the number 2 bracket. Coming down, we have what's left of the number 3 bracket, which again, that would have been Whamshell's bracket. And what we had is number 14 Bash going up against number 10 Trigger Happy. This one had 227 overall votes, and the way it panned out, Bash 130 votes to Trigger Happy's 97. Again, this is kind of totally juxtaposed, to one another. You sort of got, the long range guy. Close quarter Bash just deals massive damage. Does have the roll attack going for him. But the way it panned out, like I said, we have a number 14 seed Bash advancing on. That sets up that matchup, which of course can't really talk about here because we will do that in another video. But that brings us to our final round 3 matchup. This, of course, being our number 4 seeded bracket. Number 4, Sunburn, actually did what he was supposed to do, advanced all the way, as did number 5, Ignitor. In addition to being a fire element showdown, and I'm always excited when we get kind of elemental battles going on, particularly this late in the rounds. That speaks volumes for these two. But basically, this panned out perfectly. We had Sunburn advance all the way to the top. Ignitor did the same thing. And then in the Elite Eight, they meet up 4 versus 5. This is as good as it gets, in terms of everything going according to the numbers. And sadly, for Sunburn and Sunburn fans, this is where the road ends. Sunburn came in. We had 227 votes overall, same as Bash versus Trigger Happy. However, and I was very surprised by this margin just based on the fact that I thought Sunburn, kind of had so many fans and whatnot, but he finished with 75 votes. And what is most amazing about that is the fact that Ignitor finished 77 higher than that. I think I'd mentioned it several times on Twitter that Ignitor was basically doubling him up. He actually, of course, 75x2 would be 150, so he doubled him and then added 2. I guess just insult to injury. So basically, Ignitor, took down Sunburn for everybody. Again, I did not expect that big of a margin. That was actually our largest margin this time. That basically means that we have our round 4 matchup set. Again, I'll make a separate video. Obviously, it won't be very long. But round 3 overall, like I said, every contest had 227 votes or more, the most being between Slam Bam and Terrafin with 232. Our tightest race was Slam Bam and Terrafin, a 32 vote margin. Bash bested Trigger Happy by 33. Camo was 60 over Cynder. And then, of course, like we just wrapped up, Sunburn went down 77 votes fewer than Ignitor pulled in. Our top vote getter was Ignitor with 152. That was followed up with Terrafin at 132. Third highest vote getter would have been, let's see here. I'm sorry, I guess our second highest was Camo at 144. Third would be Terrafin, 132. And then fourth highest, of course, would be Bash at 130. But again, panned out basically, I would say, Slam Bam Terrafin, like I said, that's kind of like one of my dream matchups right there, and they're also 2 of my favorites. Still not going to release that video, at least until we've at least wrapped up this initial battle tournament. Don't, really want people to be biased or anything. But, I would have been happy with either one going on as it is. I would have voted for Terrafin. Sunburn and Ignitor, I personally would have done Ignitor just like it panned out. Camo versus Cynder, no offense to Cynder, but I'd have gone Camo. Trigger Happy Bash, I'd be really torn on that one. That would definitely be the tightest one, in my personal opinion. Just mainly because I feel like the speed of Trigger Happy and the fact that he has a projectile attacks, might have given Bash a run for his money, sort of like we saw with Zook early on. But, as it is, panned out, Bash won. I can't really ever question that. The other thing you have to take into consideration here, Trigger Happy, I've still not quite figured this out. I don't know if it's just like his diminutive size compared to some of the others, but he just has a really, really low, health count. I think it's like, 480? I believe Bash is one of the 620s. It's kind of been a while since I've been in the game, but that's basically like the lower, David versus Goliath, if you will. But just the fact that Bash deals so much damage, I can't really, argue with that. But other 3 matchups, kind of panned out with what I would have picked, so, can't be too upset with that. But I will quit rambling in this one. And again, thanks to everyone who voted. Keep throwing your ideas out. I've been insanely busy, haven't really gotten to respond to much of anything lately. Of course, if you got something important, a really good idea, breaking news on Giants or something, Best place for me to see it and respond to it would actually be the blog. I guess next best would be Twitter. Really like Google Plus. It's just it's kind of in its early days. It's going to take a while for people to really catch on, but I definitely prefer that over some other outlets. Facebook, issue I have there is when I'm on the road, you can't log into it anymore. They do too many security. I don't even want to go into it. It just ticks me off. I refuse to install their app on my phone. But that said, Twitter, sadly Google Plus, you cannot access a page. But I won't go into much more of that. But like I said, keep the ideas coming is the main thing. This one is getting close to the end, our initial tournament here. Plan to do another one. I don't know, if we'll maybe do elemental showdowns or just grudge matches. A lot of people have requested battles. I'd kind of like it. It'll have to be a number that comes out, like 4, 8, 16, 32. I can't really do like a 28-person deal or something. But a hard thing about the requests is, like if people want to see, I don't know, Sunburn versus Bash might be real popular. On the flip side, there might be an equal number of people wanting to see Camo versus Sunburn. So that's kind of one of those deals, unless I make a really nutty bracket where we could potentially have, say, like Sunburn versus Sunburn in the final. Which, obviously that happens. I guess we'd fill something in. But bottom line, just keep the requests coming. As this one gets closer to wrapping up, maybe in the final 2, might come in and kind of throw up another video, see if people, I'll try to pull, the most request matchups, kind of throw those out there, and then kind of see what else we can come up with. Try to get some really good ones thrown in, and just go from there. But do plan to continue doing this. I think a lot of people have enjoyed it. I think it's pretty cool, and again, since the game sadly does not have single player mode, this is really the best I can do. As you know, I record most of my stuff late at night. I don't really have people over at 3 in the morning. And the way it's set up, I could do 2 players at once, but it would basically just be I'd have to do RPG or something where each character gets a set number of turns, or I roll dice. I don't even want to go into it, but sorry for rambling. I'm extremely tired. Like I said, I've been out on the road, and just back. I have a really bad headache, and I actually have to be up here in a few hours. But we'll get the video up. Main thing, keep the ideas coming. Thanks again for voting. And I will come in real quick now and crank out our matchups for round 4. Questions, comments, feel free to ask here on YouTube. Again, best place for a response or for me to catch it, early and respond to it would be the blog, oneofwisdom.blogspot.com. You can follow me on Twitter, like me on Facebook. If you're one of the few out there on Google Plus, look me up there. Got the link on the blog somewhere. I'll throw it up in the top bar here in the next couple of days. But again, thanks to everybody for voting, and we will catch you next time.